As we come today to celebrate Easter after a long time, walking the journey of 40 days. If you've been part of our service when we started on Ash Wednesday, and we start to count down every Sunday as we are coming closer to the Big Bang, to the new beginning of Christianity, a day that we call Day of Resurrection. So today I wonder about how many times we like to feel the spirit of resurrection, but we have many things in life. And I wonder, even before I put it on yourself, I think about myself as a preacher, that I have to preach every Sunday. Should I preach when I have a hard day and I'm not feeling good, and I have to come and cheer you off? Or should I say, no, I'm not feeling good today, I think I'm not going to preach for you? Or how can I be authentic and share part of my life and know that the sermon is actually talking to me before it talks to you? So this is not just about coming here and feeling good, but this is about us to come here and feel dirty and stained and know that God offers washing and offers an opportunity. Yes, that church could be a place for sick people like you and me who needs help, even if we do not like to be labeled as people in need or people who have some stains and things on. But true Christianity is not about pretending. It's not about making us feel good. True Christianity sometimes even hold the mirror to show us some of our weakness and mistakes. But when we look at ourselves, we say, this is a horrible thing. I cannot even stand looking at myself. But the Christian faith say, no, there is a resurrection. The Christian faith say, there is a water that can wash your stains. The problem with us today that we got used to the stains and kept it in our bodies as part of who we are. We know the difference. When your hand is dirty, you cannot stand it. You can see it. It's visible. So there is no problem with those who feel there is stain and dirt on their hands. But the problem was those who keep walking and get used to it and look at it as, that's my skin color. That's how I should look. So today, the spirit of Easter, as we heard from Jan when she shared with the kids, the spirit of Easter is about us to move forward, to turn around, to stand up, to wake up, to change your direction. The definition of death is telling in one place was not showing any sign of breathing, was showing no sign of any living thing. This is the real definition of death. And how many times we want to keep the status quo of our life in many ways. And we do not want to take the chance when the Lord knocks on our doors the same way He knocked on the door of this woman and this disciple. Today, our reading came from the Gospel of John, where he started his gospel talking about God as the eternal Word become flesh among us. We are at the end of the gospel. This is the gospel that was written to be the last gospel written around 1995 AD. So he lived long enough to know when some disciples were still young, when some disciples did terrible things, but they turned around. Also, he watched many women who were around Christ and many rumors about who are these women, why are they supporting him, and some of them even had bad reputation. So John watched this little babies growing. So the blessing of him living that long, that he can say that days proven who is a true disciple and who is a fake disciple. We know all the story about what happened with Judas, and his story ended as he ended his life sadly. And we know the story about this guy that always lift his hand and tell Christ that, I know what you're talking about. You are the Son of God. And he's the guy that will take the microphone and talk first. And his name is Peter. But we know sadly that the story at the end will end with somebody who used to be courageous, to be at the court where Christ was heading to the cross, where he denied. He acted as a coward disciple, not as a courageous one. And today we see that in the story that John is bringing the story of Peter, because Peter now is not the shy one. Peter is the one, keep looking and reading at the book of Acts. John is the one standing in front of thousands of Jewish people speaking about God's love and forgiveness and all of this, and he's not afraid. He was so afraid from just one soldier sitting in the court and say, you speak like him, you look like him, you know this guy. And he was so terrified. And he said, no, I have no idea about this guy. This is the guy that's just changed around and said, I am so sinner, and God took me and make me a hero, not based on my strengths, but based on God's grace. John is ending his gospel today about the risen Christ that felt the mission of Christ, the Word. If you read the gospel, the beginning of the gospel, when he say, in the beginning, and when you hear that, it echoes in your ears, in the word in the beginning, to the beginning of the book of Genesis. So as John is trying to wrap the story, and so that the story is Christ is the source. He is the source, as the world and the whole world was really collapsing and no system and big chaos. And God interfered and organized things. And we see that he wants to connect Christ in the beginning of the gospel and in the end, as he is everything. In all gospels, there is no clarification about how Christ was raised. And nobody can know now by science or evidence, but we know this is one of our weakness and strengths as Christian, that when we talk about resurrection, we do not need to have a scientific proof. There is something called faith that sometimes match science, sometimes not. Sometimes goes by logic, and logic match that, but many times faith could be beyond that. So we should not struggle with that, because this is a personal testimony, a personal encountering with God. The primary goal of the early Christian was to prove that they believe in risen Christ and the tomb was empty. First, because they were thinking about Christ was like a ghost. There was many rumors in the early Christianity, and the early Christian was proving, no, he truly was risen. Nobody took him out of the tomb, and he is among us. And I wonder about why Jesus did not appear to everybody. This is the big deal. This is an event that should be on the media, on the news. Like, now you defeated everybody. All the bad guys did bad things to you. You can stand in front of them and say, look who I am. You thought you killed me on the cross? No, you're wrong. This will be a good end of a movie. But Christ was not making a movie. He was making a movement. He was not making a public show to feel who is the winner and who is the loser. But Christ really cares about you, about all this personal conversation that will happen in closed doors between you and Christ. Jesus' birth, ministry, crucifix were in public. But when it came to resurrection, it was very personal and mysterious, and it will stay this way. On every Easter, we read from the 4 Gospels about the resurrection, and each Gospel we can see different side of the same event. That's why the 3 Gospels, we call them the Synoptic Gospels, Mark, John, and Matthew. Not Mark, Luke, and Matthew. So the 3 of them are they're very similar, so that's why we call them the Synoptic Gospels. John, you have to look at John in a different way. So John today, when he talks about resurrection, is different from the Gospels. One theme that you cannot ignore in John's Gospel, it's his emphasis on woman rule. He's the one that's not shy to talk about women when they have to take some credit. In Christ's mission, for example, if you look at John chapter 2, the wedding at Cana, and we know what happened, and where John highlighted Mary's part in this miracle. In John 4, we see the Samaritan woman, the woman that stand by the well. In John 11, we see the story of Mary and Martha, the sisters of Lazarus. And today we can see another hero of the Christian faith that happened to be a woman, the first messenger of the good news to the disciples, Mary Magdalene. So even many scholars will say she should really be titled as the first apostle because she is the first one witness Christ's resurrection. We need to remember and thank John for what he did, for being courageous, for giving the credit to this woman who is really not on his side, that to prove that Christ was risen, that to prove it by woman. For a long time and for centuries, the voice of woman not considered is something that's really you should take care of it. So then in this way, as women were showing that I saw him, the culture would say, oh, she's a woman. Do not listen to her. Do not believe her. She's emotional. Women are more emotional than men, right? So because they are more emotional, they are not logical, and that's why she's really illusion. She's just like, because she's so sad she wants to see him. She imagined that she saw the man. But even with all these rumors, with all this, but John said the truth is the truth. Even saying that the first person to see and say that Christ is risen is a woman, it's not a strong evidence, but it is the truth. It's not really a good statement that I would like if I am making history. But it's not John, it's not you, it's not me. It is God who's writing history. And when God is saying this is what happened, this is how things should happen. So John, many people assume that because he lived long enough, so he saw this woman that used to be really in the dark side, and he saw how she turned to be very faithful and very giving of her life and her money and everything. So maybe because he wrote the gospel very late, he had more data to celebrate this woman more than just to put her in the corner. He is the only gospel that mentioned Mary Magdalene in details. The rest of the gospel will mention as Mary of the other Marys. She's one of the women. It's kind of like as you're trying to say the truth, but in a way like halfway, you're not lying. She was there, but we don't want to put too much light. This lady is really trouble. But the truth, she was there. But John took along a further step by saying, no, her name is Mary Magdalene. She's the one that where her name comes to you, maybe she will not bring a good memories. But the truth is the truth. Many things are said about this woman outside of the Bible, and I'm sure if you've been watching the media in the last many years, if you are good reading and you like many fictional books, this topic about Mary Magdalene is very rich topic for many fictional writers. But today we're going to focus on what we just heard from the book, from the Bible. I think it takes a long time to change people's mind about somebody. And especially in our context, John lived long enough to be wiser, and his gospel was written the last. So maybe he witnessed how this lady really changed and deeply was committed to Christ's mission. Today, and through what John told us, her commitment to Christ was very clear. When she went to the tomb in a dark time, did not care. A woman was not really a great reputation, being at night by herself. We're talking about the Middle Eastern Jewish woman, 2,000 years, not even now. Think how this context is really very troubling. So she went to the tomb because she was concerned about something, to honor this dead body. She was concerned that somebody will take this body to humiliate Christ and his followers. And still until today, as I came from the same region, we say that the soonest you buried a dead body is a sign of honor. So if you cannot save a life, you better bury the dead body as soon as you can. And even Jewish, Muslim, Christian, it's became a very, very big culture thing about really honoring the dead body. And just normally, even if they can do it, sometimes they bury people at the middle of the night, like just 2 hours maybe after death. Whenever it happens, sooner you bury the body is a sign of respect and love. So if you cannot save somebody's life, you better save their dignity while they cannot move or do anything. This is the culture that's even still exists until today. So this woman is walking and say, if we could not do anything to him, at least we want to be sure that nobody will take this body and take it somewhere else. And normally, this has happened, the robbery of the tombs was very common at the time of Jesus Christ. But it happens what? They were not doing scientific just projects or some kind of like conspiracy theories about what they do with the body. It's a sign when you have a tomb, that means you have a family. When you have a tomb, that means you have somebody you belong to. When you have a tomb, that means you have followers and people behind you that will take care of you when you cannot take care of yourself. And if you have very bad reputation in many ways and a high sign of revenge, and take your dignity as a dead body, not even as a living being. So this woman was worried about that. At least we want to save the dignity of this poor, helpless body that cannot do anything. She went to the tomb with the expectation, this guy is done, he's dead. And the last thing we want to do, we just want to keep his body in one place. She was looking to protect and honor the dead body. She was driven by different feelings: grief, loss, respect, and love to this man who changed her life from shame and hate to herself to think again about who she is. She is not the daughter of sin and dirt. She's a daughter of God. To look at herself again and remember how this guy treated her differently from all the other men. How this guy looked at her in a different way from other men. How this guy saw her as a human being, as somebody who needs help and respect than to be used or abused. Christ, in all his action with this woman, he was saying to her, what everybody's telling you is a lie. Believe me. You are a sister among those. So if I call the other disciples my brothers, you are my sister. Sister, and she's the daughter of God. I think that the message of resurrection today is where every person can say, I have seen the Lord. Can everybody say that? Today we're going to say, Happy Easter. We wish you Happy Easter. This is maybe a sentence that we repeat, but Easter is not just about a good wish. It's about personal experience, personal encounter that you will have a hard time to explain to other people. The message of resurrection everywhere, person will say, I have seen the Lord, and maybe this is the answer to the question, why resurrection was not public? Because the meaning of resurrection is to experience God is with us. God is Emmanuel. He's the guy that we celebrated in Christmas. He's the same one we celebrate through Easter. God is with us in our journey that sometimes could experience loss or gain, sorrow or joy. In the beginning of our journey, or we feel stuck and feel this is the end, and then we find out it's not actually the end. It's always is a new beginning. When we have many questions and we are so overwhelmed by there is no answer, but God say, I am with you in your questions and your answer. In your day or at night, when the dark is a symbolic thing of evil and overwhelmness. In logic, when you use science and logic and all these things that can give you comfort, but also Easter is about leaving room for mystery, leaving room for things that's beyond the numbers and science. Every Christian today will say, Christ is risen, but not everybody can say, I have seen the Lord. And if you can say that today, so go out and share the good news of people and share how this Easter took you out of the tomb. the tomb of your own life, the tomb of your own journey, the tomb of your own victimization, the tomb of all the bad things that's happened to you in your own life. The Lord is saying, come out of that and tell me that you see in me, and let people know that through justice, through love, through being a good Christian, Easter is our personal statement today. Amen.